In the grandstands of Royal Ascot, where centuries of tradition meet modern glamour, a single stolen glance between two young people would capture the world's attention and redefine what royal romance could look like in the 21st century. This wasn't just another day at the races. It was the day the future King and Queen of England showed the world that even royalty could be delightfully, authentically human. What unfolded that sun-drenched afternoon in June would become one of the most photographed and talked about moments in modern royal history, proving that sometimes the most genuine emotions happen when the cameras are rolling and the whole world is watching. This is the true story of how a playful moment at Ascot revealed the real William and Catherine, away from the formality of palace protocol, in all their natural flirtatious glory. The morning of Royal Ascot dawned with the kind of British summer weather that makes headlines: clear skies, gentle warmth, and just enough breeze to keep the elaborate fascinators from becoming unbearable. Catherine Middleton stood before the mirror in her temporary quarters at Windsor Castle, adjusting the delicate cream-coloured dress that had been chosen weeks in advance by her styling team. Every detail had been scrutinised, from the modest hemline that would photograph well when she sat down, to the subtle beading that would catch the light without appearing too flashy for the daytime event. She had been attending Royal Ascot as Prince William's girlfriend for 3 years now, but the scrutiny never lessened. If anything, it had intensified since their engagement announcement just 2 months earlier. Every gesture, every expression, every interaction between them was analysed by royal watchers and body language experts who claimed to see signs of everything from true love to political manoeuvring in the smallest of movements. Catherine's lady-in-waiting, a kind woman named Sarah who had worked for the royal family for over a decade, helped adjust the fascinator, a delicate creation of cream, silk and pearls that complemented her dress perfectly. The hat was a work of art, designed by Philip Tracy, who had become the unofficial milliner to the royal family. It was elegant without being ostentatious, modern while respecting tradition, much like Catherine herself was trying to be in her new role. "Remember, ma'am," Sarah said gently as she made final adjustments, "today is about enjoying yourself. The cameras will be there, but this is also your day to relax and have fun with the prince." Catherine smiled genuinely for the first time that morning. Despite all the preparation and protocol, she genuinely loved these events with William. Away from the stuffier state occasions, events like Ascot allowed them to be more themselves, to show glimpses of their real relationship that had developed over their university years and beyond. Meanwhile, in another wing of Windsor Castle, Prince William was having his own preparations, though considerably less elaborate than his fiancée's. He stood in front of a mirror, adjusting his morning suit, the traditional dress code for Royal Ascot that he had worn since he was old enough to attend. The grey tailcoat and waistcoat, striped trousers and top hat were as much a uniform as his military dress, but he wore them with the easy confidence of someone born to the role. His private secretary briefed him on the day's schedule as his valet made final adjustments to his outfit. They would arrive at the racecourse in the traditional carriage procession, a spectacle that had been part of Royal Ascot since 1825. From there, they would spend time in the royal enclosure, watching the races, meeting guests, and fulfilling the social obligations that came with his position.
"The press will be particularly interested in your interactions with Miss Middleton today, sir," his secretary mentioned tactfully.
"There's been quite a lot of speculation about the wedding plans since the engagement announcement." William nodded, understanding the subtext.
Their body language, their level of comfort with each other, and any signs of wedding stress would be dissected in tomorrow's newspapers. But he also knew that the best way to handle media attention was to be authentic. When he and Catherine were genuinely happy and comfortable together, it showed, and the public responded positively. The carriage procession to Ascot was a spectacle that never failed to impress, even for someone who had experienced it many times. William and Catherine rode in an open carriage, waving to the crowds that lined the route from Windsor Castle to the racecourse. The summer air was filled with the sounds of cheering and the clip-clop of horses' hooves on the ancient roads. Catherine had been nervous about her first few carriage rides, worried about everything from her posture to the possibility of her hat blowing off, but today she felt relaxed. William's presence beside her was calming, and his easy conversation helped distract her from the cameras that captured their every move. He pointed out landmarks along the route, shared amusing stories about previous Ascot experiences, and made the kind of gentle jokes that had first attracted her to him during their university days. "Remember my first Ascot when I was 8? William said with a grin as they turned the final corner toward the racecourse. "I was so excited to wear the top hat that I forgot about the carriage ride entirely. Spent the whole procession trying to keep the hat on my head, in the wind." Catherine laughed, a genuine sound that was captured by the photographers lining the route. It was these moments of natural interaction that the public loved to see.
proof that beneath the titles and formality, they were simply two people who enjoyed each other's company. As their carriage entered the racecourse grounds, the atmosphere shifted from ceremonial to celebratory.
Royal Ascot was as much about fashion and social interaction as it was about horse racing, and the crowd that gathered in the royal enclosure represented the pinnacle of British society. Everyone was dressed in their finest, women in elegant dresses and elaborate hats, men in traditional morning suits that hadn't changed significantly in over a century. The royal enclosure itself was a world apart from the more casual areas of the racecourse. Established by royal warrant, it maintained standards that harked back to the Victorian era. Ladies were required to wear modest dresses with sleeves and hats, while gentlemen wore morning dress with top hats. No one could enter without meeting the strict dress code, and everyone present had to be sponsored by someone who had attended the royal enclosure for at least 4 years. William and Catherine were escorted to the royal box, a prime viewing area that offered excellent views of both the track and the parade ring, where the horses were displayed before each race. The box was elegantly decorated with flowers and provided comfortable seating away from the general crowds, while still allowing interaction with specially invited guests. As they settled into their seats for the first race of the day, Catherine felt herself relaxing into the familiar rhythm of a royal engagement. There would be conversations with dignitaries, introductions to racing enthusiasts, and the careful balance of public engagement with private enjoyment that had become second nature to her over the past few years. The first race was the Queen Anne Stakes, and as the horses thundered past the royal box, Catherine found herself genuinely caught up in the excitement. She had grown to love horse racing during her relationship with William, appreciating both the skill of the jockeys and the beauty of the horses. Today, she had even placed a small private bet on a horse named Royal Diamond, amused by the appropriateness of the name given her recent engagement. Between races, the social aspect of Ascot took precedence. William and Catherine moved through the royal enclosure, greeting guests and old friends. Catherine's natural warmth and genuine interest in people served her well at these events. She remembered names and personal details from previous meetings, asked thoughtful questions about people's lives and interests, and managed to make each interaction feel personal, despite the formal setting. One particular conversation with an elderly racing enthusiast named Lord Pemberton illustrated her growing confidence in her royal role. Lord Pemberton had been attending Ascot for over 60 years and had strong opinions about every aspect of the sport. Rather than being intimidated by his expertise, Catherine engaged him in a spirited discussion about breeding lines and racing strategies, drawing on knowledge she had acquired through her relationship with William and her own growing interest in the sport. "Your Royal Highness," Lord Pemberton said with obvious approval, "it's refreshing to meet someone who understands that racing is about more than just fashion and champagne." William watched this interaction with obvious pride. He had worried, particularly in the early days of their relationship, about whether Catherine would adapt to the peculiar demands of royal life. Events like this proved that not only had she adapted, but she was thriving, bringing her own authentic personality to the role rather than simply following a script. As the afternoon progressed, the atmosphere in the royal enclosure became increasingly relaxed. The combination of perfect weather, exciting racing, and flowing champagne created an atmosphere of celebration that even the formal protocols couldn't completely contain. It was in this atmosphere that the moment everyone would remember began to develop. During a break between races, William and Catherine found themselves standing near the parade ring, watching the horses for the next race being led around for inspection. They were engaged in conversation with a small group that included several racing experts and a few close friends who had been granted access to the royal enclosure for the day. The conversation was animated, focusing on the prospects for the upcoming Gold Cup race, and both William and Catherine were contributing enthusiastically to the discussion.
It was then that something happened that would become one of the most enduring images of their relationship.
As they stood close together, engaged in the conversation, but also aware of each other in the way that couples often are, a photographer captured a moment that would define how the public saw their relationship. The technical excellence of the photograph, combined with the genuine emotion it captured, would make it one of the most reprinted images in royal journalism. But the significance of the moment went beyond just good photography. It represented something important about how William and Catherine approached their public roles, with authenticity, warmth, and a genuine enjoyment of each other's company that couldn't be manufactured or rehearsed. The exact sequence of events that led to the famous photograph began with something as simple as a shared joke. William and Catherine had been discussing the merits of a particular horse with Lord Pemberton when the elderly gentleman made an observation about the jockey's colourful racing silks that struck them both as particularly amusing. The comment wasn't remarkably funny in itself, but it touched on an inside joke that dated back to their university days, when they had attended an amateur racing event and witnessed a spectacularly unsuccessful attempt at elegant dismounting. As Lord Pemberton continued his serious analysis of the horse's chances, William caught Catherine's eye and raised an eyebrow slightly, a gesture so subtle that only someone who knew him well would have noticed. Catherine's response was immediate and involuntary. She pressed her lips together in an attempt to suppress a smile, but her eyes gave her away completely. They were sparkling with suppressed laughter, and the connection between them in that moment was so obvious that even the other members of their small group noticed the exchange. What happened next was captured by royal photographer Arthur Edwards, who had been covering the royal family for over 30 years and had developed an instinct for the moments that would matter. As Catherine tried to maintain her composure while fighting the urge to laugh, William leaned slightly closer to her. The movement was natural, unconscious, the kind of gesture that couples make when they want to share a private moment in a public space. The photographer's camera caught the instant when William's head tilted toward Catherine's, his mouth moving as he whispered something that made her abandon all attempts at royal composure. The laugh that escaped her was genuine and delighted, and William's response to her laughter was equally natural. A grin that transformed his usually serious public expression into something boyish and charming. But it was what happened immediately after the laugh that created the photograph that would be reprinted thousands of times. As Catherine's laughter subsided, she looked up at William with an expression that was completely unguarded. For just a moment, the careful public persona that she had learned to maintain disappeared completely, and her face showed exactly what she felt about the man standing beside her. It was a look of such obvious affection and delight that even the most cynical observers couldn't question its authenticity. William's response to that look was equally revealing. His own expression softened, and he looked at Catherine with the kind of tenderness that is usually reserved for completely private moments. For perhaps 3 seconds, they were completely absorbed in each other, unaware of the cameras, the crowds, and the formal obligations that usually govern their public appearances. The photograph that captured this exchange showed something that press coverage of royal relationships rarely managed to convey. Genuine intimacy, not the staged intimacy of formal portraits or the careful displays of affection at state occasions, but the real connection between two people who were genuinely in love and enjoyed each other's company. Arthur Edwards later said that in his 3 decades of photographing the royal family, he had rarely captured a moment that so perfectly illustrated the human side of royal life. The technical aspects of the photograph were excellent, the lighting was perfect, the composition drew the eye naturally to the subjects, and the background provided context without being distracting. But it was the emotion in the photograph that made it special. The immediate reaction to the photograph when it appeared in newspapers the following day exceeded everyone's expectations. Rather than being seen as a breach of royal protocol or an inappropriate display of emotion, the public responded with overwhelming positivity. Letters poured into Clarence House expressing delight at seeing the couple so obviously happy together. Social media, still relatively new but growing in influence, buzzed with positive comments about the authenticity of their relationship. Royal commentators, usually quick to criticize any departure from traditional behavior, found themselves praising the couple for their naturalness. One particularly influential royal correspondent wrote that the photograph showed the kind of genuine affection that the public hopes to see in their future monarchs. Real people capable of real emotions rather than distant figures going through ceremonial motions. The photograph also marked a significant moment in Catherine's evolution as a public figure. Until this point, much of the coverage of her relationship with William had focused on her background, her family's business success, and speculation about whether she was suitable for royal life. The Ascot photograph shifted the narrative to focus on the relationship itself and Catherine's obvious happiness in her new role. The rest of the afternoon at Ascot continued in the same relaxed, happy atmosphere that had created the famous moment. William and Catherine moved through the social obligations of the day with obvious enjoyment, their good mood infectious to everyone around them. They met with trainers and jockeys, presented awards to winning owners, and fulfilled all the ceremonial duties expected of them, while maintaining the natural warmth that had been captured in the photograph. During the Gold Cup race, the most prestigious event of the day, they stood together at the front of the royal box, William's hand resting lightly on Catherine's back, as they watched the horses round the final turn. When the winner crossed the finish line, Catherine clapped enthusiastically, and William leaned over to explain something about the winning horse's breeding line. Continuing their easy conversation, despite the formal setting, the presentation ceremony for the Gold Cup provided another opportunity to observe their natural interaction. As William presented the trophy to the winning owner, Catherine stood slightly behind him, watching with obvious pride as he fulfilled his official duties. When the winning jockey approached to receive his prize, Catherine stepped forward to offer her congratulations, her warmth and genuine interest evident in her manner. It was moments like these that demonstrated how well Catherine had adapted to royal life. She had learned when to step forward and when to step back, how to support William's official role while maintaining her own presence, and how to be genuinely herself within the constraints of royal protocol. The balance was delicate, but she had clearly mastered it. As the afternoon progressed toward evening, the atmosphere at Ascot became even more relaxed. The serious racing was finished, and the social aspect of the event took precedence. William and Catherine spent time with close friends, who had been granted access to the royal enclosure, enjoying conversations that were more personal and less formal than their earlier interactions. One particularly telling moment came when they encountered Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, who had known William since he was a child. Sarah's greeting was warm and familiar, and her conversation with both William and Catherine was noticeably more relaxed than the formal interactions they had experienced with other guests. The ease with which Catherine participated in this more intimate conversation showed how completely she had been accepted into William's world. The carriage procession back to Windsor Castle provided a peaceful conclusion to the day. As they rode through the same route they had travelled that morning, the crowds were smaller but no less enthusiastic. Catherine looked visibly tired but happy, her careful morning composure replaced by the relaxed satisfaction that comes from a successful day well spent. William, too, seemed more relaxed than he had in recent public appearances. The pressure of the engagement announcement and the constant speculation about wedding plans had been weighing on both of them, but today had provided a reminder of why they enjoyed public life together. When they worked well as a team, when they were both relaxed and happy, their public appearances became genuinely enjoyable, rather than simply duties to be endured. As the carriage approached Windsor Castle, Catherine removed her fascinator and let her hair down slightly, a small gesture that symbolized the transition from public duty back to private life. William noticed the gesture and smiled, reaching over to adjust a strand of hair that had caught on her earring. The moment was small and intimate, but it was also captured by photographers, providing yet another image of their natural affection. The day had been more successful than anyone could have anticipated. What had begun as a routine royal engagement had become something more significant, a demonstration of how William and Catherine's relationship enhanced both their individual public roles and the monarchy's connection with the public. The photographs from the day, particularly the famous moment of shared laughter and obvious affection, would become some of the most important images in the visual history of their relationship. But perhaps most importantly, the day had reminded both William and Catherine why they had fallen in love in the first place. Beneath the titles, the protocol, and the public scrutiny, they were still the same. Two people who had met at university and discovered that they made each other laugh. Royal Ascot had provided the perfect setting to show the world that royal duty and personal happiness could coexist, and that the most effective royal couples were those who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. The impact of the Royal Ascot photographs extended far beyond the immediate media coverage. In the days and weeks following the event, the images became symbolic of a new era in royal relationships, representing a departure from the more formal and distant approach that had characterized royal marriages in previous generations. Royal historians began comparing William and Catherine's obvious affection to that of the current Queen and Prince Philip in their early years, noting that the most successful royal marriages had always been built on genuine personal connection, rather than purely dynastic considerations. The photograph appeared on magazine covers around the world, each publication offering its own interpretation of what the moment revealed about the couple's relationship. Fashion magazines analyzed Catherine's outfit and highlighted how her natural beauty was enhanced by her obvious happiness. Celebrity publications focused on the romantic aspects of the story, comparing their relationship to fairy tale romances while noting the very real challenges they would face as future monarchs. More serious publications used the photographs to discuss the modernization of the monarchy and how William and Catherine's approach to their public roles might influence the institution's future. Constitutional experts noted that public support for the monarchy often depended on the personal popularity of individual members, and that the obvious happiness of the future king and queen could only strengthen the institution's position. The reaction from royal staff was equally positive, though expressed more privately. Experienced courtiers noted that the couple's natural ease with each other made their public appearances more successful and less stressful for everyone involved. When William and Catherine were relaxed and happy, their entire entourage could focus on the substantive aspects of their engagements rather than managing potential awkwardness or tension. Catherine's family, watching the coverage from their home in Berkshire, felt a mixture of pride and relief. Since her relationship with William had become serious, they had watched her navigate increasingly complex public situations with growing confidence. but they had also worried about the pressure she faced. Seeing her so obviously happy and comfortable in her royal role reassured them that she had made the right choice in accepting William's proposal. The wedding planning, which had been a source of stress in recent weeks, suddenly seemed more manageable. The positive public reaction to the Ascot photographs reinforced the decision to include more personal elements in the ceremony, allowing their genuine affection for each other to be part of the public celebration rather than something to be hidden behind royal protocol. William's father, Prince Charles, who had experienced his own challenges with public perception during his first marriage, was particularly pleased with the coverage. He recognized the importance of public support for successful royal marriages and was relieved to see that his son and future daughter-in-law had achieved the kind of positive media attention that had eluded him in his younger years. The Queen herself, though she rarely commented publicly on such matters, was reported to have expressed satisfaction with the coverage. As someone who had successfully maintained her own marriage under intense public scrutiny for more than 6 decades, she understood the importance of finding ways to be authentic while fulfilling public duties. The Ascot photographs suggested that William and Catherine had found their own way to achieve this balance. International reaction to the photographs was equally positive. In countries where the British monarchy served as the head of state, the images were welcomed as evidence that the institution would remain relevant and connected to ordinary people's experiences. Republican movements in these countries found it difficult to argue against a monarchy represented by such obviously happy and relatable young people. The fashion impact of the day was also significant. Catherine's cream-coloured dress and elegant fascinator were copied by designers around the world, with high-street versions appearing in shops within weeks. But more importantly, her overall style approach, elegant without being ostentatious, fashionable while respecting tradition, established a template that would influence how royal women dressed for decades to come. The racing world also benefited from the positive coverage. Royal Ascot's reputation as the pinnacle of British social events was reinforced by the association with such a happy royal moment. Attendance in subsequent years would increase as people hoped to witness similar moments of royal authenticity. Perhaps most significantly, the photographs changed how William and Catherine themselves approached their public roles. The positive reaction gave them confidence that they could be themselves in public settings rather than constantly worrying about maintaining perfect royal composure. This shift would become evident in subsequent public appearances, where they seemed more relaxed and natural than they had in the past. Their engagement interviews, conducted a few weeks after Ascot, reflected this new confidence. When asked about balancing their public duties with their personal relationship, they spoke more openly about enjoying their shared experiences and supporting each other through the challenges of royal life. The easy affection that had been captured in the Ascot photographs was evident in their body language during the interviews. The wedding planning also benefited from the Ascot success. Decisions about photography, about including candid moments in the official coverage, and about allowing more natural interaction during the public portions of the ceremony were all influenced by the positive reaction to their Ascot appearance. The wedding would ultimately strike a perfect balance between royal grandeur and personal authenticity. As autumn arrived and the royal calendar moved toward winter events, William and Catherine continued to build on the success of their Ascot appearance. Each subsequent engagement seemed more natural and relaxed than the last. Their Christmas appearances, traditionally formal occasions, included moments of genuine warmth that echoed the Ascot photographs. The impact on Catherine's individual role was particularly significant. Before Ascot, much of the coverage had focused on her background and whether she would successfully adapt to royal life. After Ascot, the focus shifted to her activities and interests, with the media and public clearly accepting her as a legitimate and valued member of the royal family. Her confidence in this acceptance allowed her to take on more challenging engagements and to express her own interests more clearly. Charity work that had previously been carefully chosen to avoid controversy became more ambitious and personally meaningful. Public speeches that had once been filled with carefully neutral language began to reflect her own personality and concerns. The success also influenced how other young royals approached their public roles. William's cousins, watching the positive reaction to authenticity and natural affection, began to modify their own approach to public appearances. The entire younger generation of the royal family benefited from the new template that William and Catherine had established. Royal photographers, too, learned from the success of the Ascot images. Rather than focusing exclusively on formal poses and ceremonial moments, they began to watch for the unguarded moments that revealed personality and genuine emotion. This shift led to more engaging coverage of royal events and helped maintain public interest in the monarchy. The long-term impact of the Royal Ascot moment extended well beyond the immediate coverage. It became a reference point for successful royal relationships, proof that it was possible to maintain both personal authenticity and royal dignity. Future royal couples would be compared to the standard of obvious mutual affection and natural ease that William and Catherine had established. Years later, as they took on increasingly senior roles within the royal family, the Ascot photographs would be revisited as evidence of their fundamental compatibility and shared approach to public service. The moment had captured something essential about their relationship that would remain constant through decades of public life. The photographs also influenced public expectations of royal relationships. The obvious happiness and genuine affection they displayed raised the standard for what the public hoped to see from their future monarchs. This was generally positive, encouraging authenticity and emotional connection. But it also created pressure for future generations to achieve the same level of public engagement and natural charm. For William and Catherine themselves, the Ascot Day remained a touchstone throughout their marriage. In later interviews, they would refer to it as an example of how their public duties could also be genuinely enjoyable when they approached them together. The day had proven that their partnership enhanced both their individual effectiveness and their shared contribution to the monarchy. The racing connection also became a lasting part of their shared interests. They would return to Ascot many times over the years, and Catherine's genuine enthusiasm for racing, first displayed that day, would develop into serious expertise and patronage of racing charities. The sport provided a relaxed setting where they could continue to show the natural affection and easy partnership that had first captured public attention. Ultimately, the Royal Ascot photographs represented more than just a successful media moment. They captured the essence of a partnership that would successfully modernize the monarchy while respecting its traditions, that would maintain dignity while embracing authenticity, and that would prove that the most effective royal service comes from individuals who genuinely enjoy working together toward shared goals. The flirtatious moment that started it all became the foundation for a lifetime of successful public service, built on genuine personal connection.